Good morning. Thank you for taking the time to join us for today's webinar and demonstration of the Aruba CX 10,000 series switch. Leading today's discussion and demo is Mike McSpadden, Consulting Systems Engineer at AMD Pensando. He will discuss how the AMD DPU in the CX 10,000 switch generates telemetry on east-west traffic. He'll also talk about a set of APIs that can provide flow records, logs, and non-sampled IP-fix information elements to a variety of industry standard tools to help visualize and query the raw data into context-based intelligence and insights for driving innovation. He's joined today by Ryan Young, Vandis' CTO, and Greg Eads, network architect, who will moderate questions with Mike. In October 2021, HPE Aruba Networking introduced the next evolution of switching architecture, the industry's first distributed services switch with AMD Pensando. The Aruba CX 10,000 switch delivers advanced scalable network and security services for enterprise data centers. For those of you who are new to Vandis, Vandis and Aruba have had a close working partnership for over 17 years, and we are a platinum level partner with one of the largest Aruba certified engineering teams in the Northeast. Our team also sits on the Aruba Advisory Council. We are excited to share this solution with you today. We are recording today's session. If you have any questions, you can submit them at any time through the Q&A panel. And lastly, a quick reminder to visit vandis.com/events for a list of other upcoming events that you might be interested in. And now I'll turn it over to Mike.
Thank you so much, Joanne. It's a pleasure to be here today. So I want to talk to you about the unique capabilities of the CX10K switch. It looks like an ordinary 1RU top-of-rack switch, and indeed it is. It's a data center class switch, but it's way beyond a simple data center switch. And that is because of our custom silicon, our DPUs, two of them that sit inside of this chassis that are fully integrated with the AOS CX stack. It gives this top-of-rack switch unique capabilities that you've never seen before, right? So, the CX10K reminds me a lot of the first next generation firewall about 10 years ago when I was at Palo Alto Networks. We had to convince customers that we had something that was totally unique, and indeed it was. And I remember being in meetings and customers looking at it and saying, "Nah, you can't do all that." And we were saying, "Yes, you can, and here's how." And so we have a very similar kind of a thing here with the CX10K, in that it has unique capabilities through the DPUs that are inside of it. So those capabilities are not only giving us the ability to do segmentation within the fabric, so macro and micro segmentation and NAT and highly scalable IPsec and those kinds of services in the fabric, which is by itself amazing. But it's also giving the ability to see everything, generating telemetry per packet, so non-sampled IP fix. I'll get into that in the presentation here and in the demo, as well as the ability to automate in a way that has never been possible before, because now you have full visibility, right? So it's really important to understand that this is not probably what you think it is. It is way beyond what an ordinary switch can do. So before I answer that, I do need to show the disclaimer. Required to show that. Okay, in order to understand these unique capabilities in the CX10K, we have to kind of, look at the history here. So in the 90s, we had, layer 2 networks. First they were bridged, then switches came along. We used to say, switch when you can, route when you must, because the silicon wasn't advanced enough. We had dependence on spanning tree. We had multiple protocols. By about the year 2000, the protocol wars had been won. Essentially, IP had won. The other protocols were dying quickly. Routers got faster. We had layer 3 switches, so we no longer had to architect around routers. We could build tiered networks. So we went from the complexity of the 90s to sort of the simplicity of the 2000s. Those were simpler days. one application, or one client to one workload on a server was pretty much the norm for most of the time. And VMware came along around the year 2010 and just disrupted everything, right? With server virtualization. Now, you could have one giant workload spread across 20 machines, virtual machines, or we could have individual workloads sprinkled around. And so we had this explosion. We had vMotion, we had workloads moving around to different hosts. And the requirement became, every application needs to talk to every other application. And we also had the advent of spine leaf, cloth fabrics, which held a lot of promise, right, for scalability. The problem, though, the big obvious problem, was that security was not part of the fabric. It needed to be, added on, so in some way, and typically that was a bolt-on approach with, trying to insert a service, border leaf function, or a north-south, using a north-south firewall, to inspect east-west. That became extremely complex. Those firewalls were never designed to scale to be able to secure and inspect east-west. Other vendors came along and tried to solve the problem with agents. And that was also flawed because you can't get agents on every host. Either there aren't agents for the operating system, or there's agents resistance for various reasons. And so very complex networks. You had different operating systems. You had bolt-on for adding services. The hyperscalers, by the way, looked at this problem early on and said, "We're not going to do that. That's not going to scale." Right? And they took a much different approach. They realized that in order to scale, they have to automate. And in order to automate, they need to simplify. So simplification is very, very, very key. And that's one of the tenets of the CX10K and the Aruba solution, is to simplify. So we simplify down and we follow the lessons that we've learned. When I say we, I mean AMD Pensando. We have history with the cloud service providers who have been using our silicon for some time. So Oracle, Azure, IBM Cloud, all use our silicon. So we've learned lessons from them, and we brought that scalability into the CX10K 1RU smart switch, distributed services switch. And so with the CX10K, we're able to, as I said before, generate telemetry and use that telemetry then, as the basis for automation. So really exciting time, to be in data center networking. And Aruba is the first, and they've got a 2-year head start on anyone else to have a DPU inside of a switch. So importantly, two things have been happening. Obviously another big trend has been the dawn of AI, right? We talk about AI all the time. We're at AMD. So along with 4th-gen networking, we're no longer, let me define 4th-gen networking, by the way, all right? We've moved away from that complexity of the 3rd-gen, right, to the 4th-gen, where in the 3rd-gen, the network is plumbing, and then the services are bolt-on. In 4th-gen, the services are delivered in the fabric, okay, not inserted, okay, as they would be in ACI, for example, but native to the fabric. That is 4th-gen. And 4th-gen also takes advantage of AI in a way that 3rd-gen never could, because 3rd-gen was never built to be able to, is incapable of providing the telemetry that feeds AI, that becomes the foundation, of automation. So these two trends are happening at the same time. We're simplifying, we get visibility, we're able to automate. So, we've got, with the CX10K, we've got, really it's a game changer. It is the industry's first distributed services smart switch. The capabilities that we offer today, via our AMD Pensando DPUs, our silicon, stateful firewall, okay, we offer encryption, so IPsec. And, by the way, we offer scale that you'd pay 100 times more, typically to be able to do this. But you can do this on a 1 RU. So over 400 gigabits per second of IPsec encryption and 100 gigabits per second on a single flow. That is unheard of. All right, so we've got a top-of-rack switch that is doing way, way more. It's boxing way above its weight class. It's doing stateful firewall. It's doing encryption. It's providing incredible telemetry, and we'll get into that. That's going to be, there's a lot that offers, in addition to to NAT services. So the key point being that these services are no longer separate bolt-on solutions. Get the traffic out to the solution, but they're in line in the fabric. They're delivered. Now the fabric is smart. It's no longer a dumb plumbing. So let's talk about simplicity. So let's look at the problem with the existing architectures where we have services that are bolted on. Right? When A needs to send a flow to B, it has to go to the service complex, and then it goes to B, and then B has to go back to the service complex, then back to A. That's a huge problem, right? We just cut our bandwidth in half, right? It's very inefficient. It doesn't scale. It's expensive. It's very third gen. So when we look at the requirements in our data centers with microservices, every app needs to be able to talk to pretty much every other app, right? And we've tried to solve a full mesh requirement with a hub and spoke solution. That's terrible design. That's very bad design. That will not scale. That will not work. It becomes more and more complex as we try to plug the holes in the dike. It just doesn't work. It's the worst network design in my long career that I've seen. So with fourth gen, we are no longer trying to solve a full mesh requirement with a hub and spoke solution. We are solving a fourth gen requirement with a fourth gen approach that the hyperscalers have been doing all along, right? It's the offering those services as part of the fabric, stateful services, IPsec, telemetry, right, et cetera. So in the fourth gen, the traffic flows as it should. The services are in the fabric. So A needs to talk to B. It goes through the top-of-rack switch to B. Right. Let's get into the sort of the really cool stuff. All right. This is where this is where everything is going. So with existing solutions today, in terms of visibility, we have probes, we have agents, we have the TAP-AG network. Each of those is seeing a single piece. So we have a single piece of the puzzle. We're not seeing everything that's going on. Typically we're chasing problems. With the CX10K and the non-sampled IPFix telemetry that we generate for that, we're seeing everything. There's nothing that's being missed. So this being, top of rack, it's ubiquitous. So we're seeing it all. So when we try to use machine learning and AI with existing tools, we only get partial information. And when partial information will always yield hallucinations. With the CX10K, we fixed this, right? So third gen visibility, I'm going to go through this really quickly. We have, good telemetry, north-south, your north-south firewall, we're pretty good there. We're seeing firewall logs for north-south. The problem here is that around 80% of the traffic is east-west inside the data center. And that's the traffic that we have the hardest time, understanding and protecting, right? Segmentation is not easy. Otherwise, we'd all be doing it. So with third gen approaches, typically we got a probe, maybe those probes are on the links to the servers. The problem with probes, of course, is they're expensive. We can't put them everywhere. So we're only seeing where the probes are. So maybe we move probes up to uplinks. Again, the problem there is, from every switch, we've got, multiple uplinks, right? Again, probes are expensive. We're still not seeing everything. Another way, of looking, for, getting visibility in the third gen approach is that agent-based approach. And agents are pretty good at, they're very good actually at providing mostly, process information, security information, traffic, et cetera, et cetera. And it tends to feed the security operations center. But they don't have, visibility into what else, is going on because, they're tied to the individual, host, right? So then, we've made the problem even more complex. We said we're still not getting all the visibility that we need in the third gen. So we built a TAP-AG network, right? And we're looking at, we're aggregating things through an aggregator and we deduplicating. So it's very complex. And we're still only getting maybe 5% of visibility at 30% of the cost of the fabric. That's a terrible return on investment, right? That's awful. And if we're seeing, if our solution is showing us sampled, IP fix, what is that? 1 in 8,000 packets. That's 0.125% of what's going on. That is going to not produce the kind of telemetry that is really actionable. So what's game changing here with the CX10K is that we're no longer sampling any, the IP fix. We're sending information elements about everything, and we're sending firewall logs about everything. And incidentally, we don't need to even do policy, any kind of deny policy on the CX10K. We can simply run the traffic through our ASICs on those CX10Ks and generate the telemetry. In fact, that's, as you start your journey with CX10K, you're not going to do segmentation step one. You're going to do, install it as a top-of-rack switch, turn on visibility, right? No security, just understand what's going on, see everything, right? And then you're going to be able to use that telemetry to rationalize security policy. And that can be done manually, or better yet, the way we should be doing it is leveraging machine learning and AI. And that's kind of what I want to get to here really quickly, automation. So when we try to automate in third generation, it's really, really tough. We've got multiple, management servers. We've got multiple solutions. None of these talk together, multiple individual pieces of the puzzle. That's a problem, right? Fourth gen, it's solved. Problem solved. We're seeing all the telemetry. We're able to provide that not simply the day zero automation. By day zero, I mean being able to deploy the fabric, stand up the fabric. Everyone has that. That is absolutely table stakes. Everyone does that. Juniper, Cisco, Arista, everyone, Aruba. Day one automation. That's important. Got to be able to do that. Again, that's table stakes. Everyone does that. Not unique. So day one automation is workload automation, attaching the workload to the network, being able to assign the correct VLANs and assign the correct services, et cetera. Right. So typically that's using the tools on the left and doing some scripting. Table stakes. All right. Not very interesting. We got to be able to stand up the fabric. We have to be able to attach the workloads. Important, right? We do that also. Aruba does that extremely well with AFC and with our Policy and Services Manager, PSM. All right. Now, what's really interesting is day two automation. So running a network. This is automation of operations. This is something that no one does except the Aruba CX10K. So this is being able to automate a running network. Remember those services that are being delivered in line in the fabric. Now, because we're generating telemetry, we're able to use machine learning and AI to do unique things like automate security policy, automate the network fixing itself before there's an outage. So let's look at an example of third gen, troubleshooting versus fourth gen. So third gen, the app team calls, says, hey, your network broke my app. The NOC says, well, oh, okay, well, we don't have a probe there, so we're gonna have to move the probe. Hope it happens again. They move the probe over. Maybe that's 30 minutes. Maybe it's a day, depends on the environment. But the hope is the strategy here. They're hoping that it'll happen again. Hope is not a strategy, folks, because it rarely happens, when you need it to happen on demand. So Yeah, we didn't see anything. So they say, let's dig deeper. Let's bring it to the TAP-AG network and get full packets and then see if we can figure out what's going on. Well, hours go by, maybe a day goes by, and they're looking at full packets. Now, full packets are good, but again, this strategy is based on hope. I hope it's going to happen again. We may see it, we may not. And the life of a knock engineer, they'll laugh at this because this is their life. They're constantly chasing problems that happened before, and they're hoping they'll happen again so they can get to the bottom of them. With the CX10K, we have, it's a whole different paradigm, right? Now we have that non-sampled telemetry. Let's look again. All right. So the app team calls and says, hey, your network broke my app at 10:05. We don't have to move probes around. We're not reliant on probes. We're not reliant on agents or taps. We're not reliant on after the fact, right? We have, because we've been generating that telemetry, the ability to look back to the precise time that the problem happened, and see what was happening, right? So we focus in on that exact time, and we can see, all right, that there was a dip in throughput. It went down to whatever 5% of what it had been prior to that. And we're also saying that there are no TCP retransmissions. So no signs of packet loss, but a drop in throughput. You better look at your app. It's not the network. So the time to resolution is seconds or minutes versus hours. So, Time Machine is a great thing. That's available, without any third-party integrations. You can kind of figure out what's going on. But folks, it's 2024, right? AI is here to stay, and we can do much better. So, Time Machine, trying to visualize for humans, right? That's hay. Going through piles of hay for humans, bad idea, right? Let the machines go through that. Let the machines sift through that and be able to provide actionable information. So with that third gen approach, bad idea, right? Disparate views producing, slices of visibility, no real correlation to anything, right? It's a lot of manual, running around trying to figure it out versus fourth gen simplicity, where the telemetry is generated all the time, goes to AI, goes to ML, and the outcomes, are automated, right, through a feedback loop, right? So that very important, ability for the CX10K to not only be the source of the telemetry, but also the enforcement point for when it needs to be, is very, very important, because now we're no longer, there's no drift between the source of telemetry and the enforcement. They're in sync all the time. So if we look at this, right, we've built a framework that is completely open. So we basically send the telemetry to a Kafka stream data lake, and third parties can integrate into that, or subscribe to it, and basically use that raw data to do various things. And we've got the ability with Guardicore to rationalize a security policy in an automated fashion. Tell me what my security policies should look like, rather than me trying to figure it out on my own. And with Augtera, we're sending the non-sampled IP fix, and they're looking at that, and they're able to predict outages so that the network is proactive about healing itself before there's an outage. The SIM, we've got, we can send to Splunk, we can send to Elastic. Google Chronicle is another partner we're working with for XDR. So XDR being, that like NDR, but more open, right? We're detection and response. They're getting the telemetry and then making intelligent predictions based on ML and AI as to what may be happening from a security perspective, right? So really importantly, I want you to think about this. When you make a purchase decision, for a top-of-rack switch, it's typically a 5 to 7 year commitment. And where are we with AI today? We're you know, we already have integrations today, and you know there are more coming. All right, and this is the way it's going. This is you know, hyperscalers have been doing this. I mean, they've got their own, you know, ML and AI automation built in. So when there's a problem, they automate around it. They're able to scale because they've learned to automate. They've done the, you know, they've done the hard work. They simplified. They use telemetry. When there's a problem, they automate around it really quickly. So their, you know, their data center may be 100 times bigger than yours, but their SOC and their NOC is not. It may be the same size as yours. It's because they've taken advantage of this ability to automate. So that's really, you know, that's really it. You know, final thought being is, you know, are you seeing, you know, what the future holds, and are you seeing that the advantage that only the CX10K can give you right now? So with that, what I'd like to do is jump into the demo.
Yeah, so now that we're getting in the demo, Mike, we'll go over a few of the items that I know our customers are going to need to know. For example,
Yeah.
like how do we build a policy?
Okay, great question. Thanks, Greg. So yeah, so CX10K. So I'm in the policy services manager, and if we go into here, we just go simply right down to security policies, right? And I've got a number of security policies that are already configured in this lab environment. So if I want to add a new security policy, I just give it a name and call it Vandis. And then we're going to create a rule. So we can call it rule 1. Right? Very simple. Action can be permit or deny. We can describe it, you know, make it more, you know, easy to understand. And then, you know, we have the ability to toggle it to be disabled. So we can configure this and not have it enabled right off. And then down here, you know, we can say, okay, we're going to do this, you know, via IP address, anything on the 10/8, anything on the 11/8, can talk to any, right? And we can do this on a protocol basis. So we're going to say TCP, we're going to say 80 just to make this simple, right? And then we save it, right? So very simple, you know, to do it that way. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And then if we wanted to scale this out, do you have labels? What would you have to scale it?
Yeah, that's a great thing, because nobody wants to be, you know, doing their security policy based on 5-tuple, right? You know, we need a way to scale it, right? So we have a really tight integration with vCenter. So when we look at that, we're actually able to pull from vCenter. We see, you know, the workload name. We see the tags, okay, that are associated with that. And we can actually use these tags, you know, in policy. So rather than simply building policy on 5-tuple information, we can use tags. We actually have the ability to do groups as well. So if you look at this, we've got a prod app. I mean, let's take a look at that. I just built that before the demo. So what we're doing here is we've got a workload group, right? And that I've called it prod app. So we're saying anything with the vCenter environment label prod, and the workload that equals app, right? We're putting in this group, and then this becomes a dynamic group, meaning, you know, as the IP addresses change, as those machines are added or taken away or moved, you know, through a vMotion event, within vCenter, that information is automatically sent to PSM, and then automatically, without you having to take any manual intervention, updated in policy within the CX10K.
Okay, nice. And maybe we could touch on some of the visibility options. What visibility options can we get in PSM currently?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So yes, we have the ability to to send the telemetry to PSM, and see what's going on there. So if we go up to security policies, we go over here to network graph. It's fetching the data. So this provides really quick visibility into what's been going on. Right. This is by default, the view is the past hour, could be the past 15 minutes, 30 minutes, past day. And it's done on a per VRF basis. So yeah. So really quickly, a VRF is the collection, whatever VLANs are assigned to that VRF, is managed under that VRF. So we can apply policy at the VRF level as well as at the network level. And I'll get into that in a minute because that's kind of important. But what I do want to show you here to answer your question, Greg, is that we have the ability to see all the flows because we're also sending, that telemetry to PSM. So, we see that we have, importantly, these are unique flows. Okay, so so if we look at this first one, we see that 10.29.32.10 as a source was talking to 10.29.31.11 on 8086 protocol 6, 3,518 times, right? So we may want to create a rule for that. And it's very, very simple to do. We can add that to policy. So it's very easy to, we can add that to an existing policy, or we can create a new policy. And I'm going to create a new policy. And I'm going to call that Vandis, right? And we give it a rule name. Rule 1, right? We can give it a description, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All right. We even have the ability to change the rule order if this were part of an existing policy. The action is permit or deny. And again, so much of this work has already been done for us, right? We know the protocol number, we know the port. We don't have to, we don't have to go and look that up. It's a flow that we know about, so we're just adding that to a policy or creating a policy for that. So good visibility within PSM, but I will tell you that the great visibility is in Elastic. So in that open framework, that the elk stack being Kibana, Elastic, and Logstash provide. So this might be a good time to jump in. Greg, unless you have other questions.
Unless the only other thing I would say is I know, and we're going to get into a little more automation, but is there anything within PSM that you can show that we can automate within PSM?
Yeah. So again, this is really it. So PSM is not really there to automate the rule base. That's more of an AI ML kind of activity. But like I just showed, being able to see the flows and then quickly add something to a rule is available today in PSM. Any other questions?
Oops, sorry, I was muted there. Okay, so yeah, the identifying of those ports and things is the AI that you get in PSM. Okay, understood.
Right. Yeah. So from an AI perspective, it's more about the third-party integrations. PSM again, a very important tool for being able to program our distributed services modules, those ASICs, those DPUs that I've been talking about, that generate all the telemetry and and do the stateful inspection, do the IPsec, do the NAT, all those things. So PSM is really, really key, but it's really not the AI ML interface. So what we're looking at here, this is simply elk stack. So we're sending, so this is Elastic. If you're familiar with Kibana, this is a database where we've got, our both our non-sampled IP fix as well as our firewall logs. in here. And that example I gave you before, where the app team calls and says at this specific time, 9:31, your network broke my app, right? Well, this is the time machine. This is that ability to go in and see everything from a flow basis as well as a per packet basis in terms of IP fix, were there any IP any TCP retransmissions at that time, right? So this is raw data. So yeah, we can we have the ability to to look at various views here. You can set up different queries if you're familiar with the interface. This is all good, all right. But what I'm doing here is basically manual. Like I'm manually looking at all the telemetry, and this is good if you're a data scientist or if this is that click. It's still sort of click ops. Except that we're not doing it in a third generation fashion. We're able to look at the time machine and figure it out without moving probes around, right? We're able to drill down and go back in time and so forth because we have the history of what happened. Again, that's good, all right? But it's 2024, and ML and AI are making strides, and that is the way of the future. They used to say, two cars in every garage. I forget who said that, but two DPUs in every switch is coming. But so this is what's changing everything. The ability to to have all the data all the time, right, enables automation that has never been possible before, right? So when we look at what those automations look like, right? Again, today it's Guardicore, for automating around security policy. Tell me what should be talking to this database. What should my rule base look like, for this, so that I don't have to, manually configure that. You see all the data, you tell me, kind of a thing. So that's available today. Incidentally, this isn't replacing their agent approach. They have a wonderful solution with agents, but they know that even their largest customers can't put agents everywhere. There's agent resistance. It's impossible to put agents on certain machines like mainframes or AI Xboxes, right? So how do we protect everything in a consistent fashion? Right? It's done in the fabric. It's done in the fourth generation, and it's done with telemetry. They see that. They're leading the charge there. And so this just complements their approach with agents. So really interesting times, to be able to to provide east-west security policy, segmentation policy, from AI and ML is beyond unique. And then also the ability, for example, for Google Chronicle to take advantage of the same raw telemetry and make intelligent observations and through machine learning and AI to predict when there's an issue, and maybe that issue is, hey, we need to look further. We need to go into depth and look at packets before we make a judgment, right? So another unique capability with the CX10K is to do ER span. So today that's VLAN based, but in the future that will be per flow based. So looking at just packets on specific flows without having to move tools around to do this, and just give me the packets on the interesting traffic within the data center, so we can make a judgment. So, and that judgment may be, hey, this is clearly nefarious, and we need to take action. And again, the top-of-rack switch is cleverly described. It's cleverly disguised as a dumb top-of-rack switch. It is a smart switch. It is able to do enforcement, so through the API, right? Through our security API, you're able to, or in the future, Google Chronicle is able to speak to PSM, and PSM is able to program our DPUs. Today, Guardicore can do that. Also, we have a great integration with Augtera for AI ops, for automating the ability for the network to be proactive about taking measures before there's an outage. Before there's an outage, or before the application completely breaks, we can take action. The doc is notified, and they're proactive. Right? In that example I gave before, right, that third gen troubleshooting, where the NOC is always chasing a problem that they're hoping is going to reoccur. Wouldn't it be great? In the fourth generation, they can find the problem before it becomes a problem, and they can call the app team and say, "Hey, we fixed the problem, all right, before it became a problem." It changes the paradigm, right? It's completely unique. So I'm going to pause. Greg, more questions?
Yeah. So with these all these integrations, is there somewhere where we can go to get kind of guidance on a lot of the integrations that you have currently, or that you're building towards?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say, reach out to your Aruba teams, and we work very, very closely with the sales teams. And we can actually demo, these integrations. If you're interested in POCing them, we can POC them as well.
We have a question coming in from the Q&A here, Mike.
Yes.
So it's the question is the Aruba switch compatible with a 9116N fabric switch that sits in a Dell MX 7000 chassis? Can you talk a little bit about the compatibility of the CX10K in a multi-switch environment?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. Yeah. So the CX10K is designed to be, fabric agnostic, right? It's designed to work in pretty much any class fabric out there. Of course, I'm a network guy from way back, right? So the devil's in the details, right? So if you're talking about a large, complex environment, you're going to need to qualify it, right? If it's multi data center fabric and all of that. But Aruba's actually published, interop, documents where they've done third-party validation. I know with at least Cisco and Arista. I can't speak to the Dell question specifically, but again, it was designed to be. It's not a forklift proposition here. We're not asking customers to simply, forklift out what they've got and put in Aruba CX10K. The approach that we recommend, is put it in as a leaf switch in the fabric, and qualify it there. Turn on full visibility. Start getting insight that you've never had before. Full visibility, and then begin to utilize the services in line. So that firewall, etc. Other questions?
I could ask another one. We may have customers that have that leverage ACLs on their access layer or in their data center. They might have transitioned to a firewall, doing limited enforcement there. Is that something that they could move to a CX10K and get that same visibility and telemetry from that, and just remove those?
Yes, and they're going to get it, in a way that the telemetry is going to be, close to the workload, right? The problem today they have with that north-south firewall is that it's not going to see 80% of what's going on. It's too hard to get the traffic out to that north-south firewall, right? So not only will they get the same kind of visibility that they're getting on that north-south firewall, but they're going to get it for everything. That's huge, right? So yes, this can replace, from a visibility perspective, what they're doing on that north-south firewall. And yeah, it is, it's designed to do stateful inspection, right? It's designed to do layer 4 firewall, which is all you need. And I'm a former Palo Alto Networks SE. I know all about application firewall, right? East-west application firewall really doesn't make a lot of sense. Being able to secure at layer 4 is good enough. You need to also be able to use AI and ML for XDR for security. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. I don't see any further questions in the Q&A panel. So if there aren't any questions at this time, I think it's a good chance to wrap up. So, Mike, I thought today was extremely compelling. And so on behalf of the Vandis team, I'd like to thank you for your presentation and demo. As a follow-up to this session, for those who are interested, we are hoping you'll consider registering for our workshop on the CX10K switch. This will use Aruba Fabric Composer, and it will be on June 11th. The seats are limited for this program, so if you are interested, please sign up on our events page of our website. And of course, we'd like to thank you all for joining us today. If you have any additional questions or would like to set up a demonstration for your team, please reach out to us at info@vandis.com, and we'll get right back to you on that. Thank you and have a wonderful rest of your day.